to the podcast. This is Build, Burn, Become with Fred Moore. I am Fred Moore, by the way. And I wanted to let you know that this podcast was brought to you by Beachbox Fitness, Beachbox Gym. You can check it out at beachboxnow.com. And if you use the discount code 3BPOD, you could get $25 off of a gym membership when you come to us. So I encourage you to come check it out. Check us out on the website. Look up the different classes that we have, morning classes, night classes, and just a brief description of what Beachbox Gym is. We do cardio kickboxing, and we have smart technology connected to it. So we basically pay you to work out. What I mean by that is the harder you work out, the more Beachbox rewards you earn, and you can use those to basically buy food and coffee and massages. It's a pretty neat thing that we have, and a lot of people love it. So come and check us out. And getting on with the podcast, today I am doing a solo shot here, no guest. This is a very important podcast because I think this really sets the tone for what we're all about at Build, Burn, Become. Describing the podcast to people is fun for me because I essentially get to describe myself. And, you know, the podcast basically is an extension of my own being. I noticed that between myself and a lot of other people and having been around the block for a while now, there's times in life where we have to dig deep and find that inner drive or strength or whatever it is that you want to call it. And we need certain ways to facilitate it and to bring ourselves about. And Build, Burn, Become basically is like a 3-part sequence where you're building yourself up, or you're building your empire, you're building your world around you, whatever it is you're building. You know, you got a hammer, you got a nail, build. And then burn, burn brightly, reach high for the sky, just go for it, and no apologies. Just take your life in your hand and become the thing that you want to become. It's a simplified way of saying really something that's complicated as living your life. But sometimes we need these things. We need to simplify in order to understand complexity. And our lives can be complex. And when they get too complex, we tend to shut down. We lose our confidence. We lose our drive, our motivation. And you know what? We become a lesser version of ourselves. And nobody likes being there. Nobody likes being stuck that way. So I want to talk about things that are empowering, and I want this podcast to be empowering. So today's episode, we're going to go with the title of Stepping Up to the Plate. This was came about because I was talking to Scott, who is my producer of the podcast here. He does a great job, as you can see with the video and all the technical aspects. And he was just asking me basically what's this podcast about? What do you want to talk about? And I gave him a whole spiel, and I said, you got to step up to the plate. He said, make that an episode. So that's exactly what we're doing here. And the podcast is about self-improvement, self-empowerment, mindset, health, wellness, fitness, nutrition, entrepreneurship, business, and as well as relationships, building relationships and becoming, becoming a person who has strong connections with the world, becoming a better you. So, basically I want to start with how we got to this point, basically. And when I first found Beachbox Fitness, I was sort of in a place where I was trying to reinvent myself. A firefighter for 15 years, father, husband, basically living a suburb-type life, I guess you could say. But the firefighting, for me, is like, it's an adventure. It's 15 years of going to fires and just seeing so many amazing things. So it's always given me my edge, I have to say. I never quite lost that need for the adrenaline, ever quite lost that need to get some action in. I live for it. It's become part of me. And but I realized as I'm getting along in my career and I have a kid now and everything, I have to consider where I'm going to be in the future. And I finally at a stage in my life where I'm like, wait a minute, I could think this through now. I have a minute here. So I started to say to myself, what else can I do with my life besides fight fires? And the one thing I love doing is talking fitness, nutrition, talking about mindset, all this stuff I just capped for you. And basically, I decided to go out and become a personal trainer because I just like helping people. I like talking to people and figuring out ways to enhance their lives and make things better. I see myself more as a life coach or something like that, or a self-improvement coach. And when I started hunting around for a place to work at, I came across Beachbox. I met the owner, and Beachbox just opened up in the beginning of 2018. I came along in February, and I had it in the back of my mind of doing a podcast, but when I first met the owner, his name is Wayne Strobel, I pretty much didn't think I was going to do the podcast. But then as I started to get involved in work at Beachbox, the opportunity came up to start shooting the podcast. And the first podcast we did was called Beachbox Radio. And we did 10 episodes. And then the summer came and we took a little bit of a break. And then I meet Scott, who's my producer, and we kind of collaborated and we talked about rebooting the podcast and coming back, and that's exactly what we did. And we came back as Bill Burn Become, and also develop a Beachbox studio where other people can do a podcast. Besides my own podcast, we can have anybody come in here and throw down whatever it is that they want to talk about, and we'll put it up on our studio. And it's awesome having this set up because with the enhancement of the production from Scott and all his equipment and everything, I could pay more attention to content, talking about the things I want to talk about. And I have to admit that I kind of suck with the technology. It's just cumbersome to me, but rapping and talking to people and connecting with people, that's what I love doing. So it's the perfect kind of thing because Scott is not so much as the guy that wants to be in front of the camera, but he's a wizard behind the scenes, great photographer and everything else, and that's what he loves doing. So he's enjoying himself recording these, and I'm enjoying myself being out in front, and he's taking care of all that. It's really freed me up a lot. And Bill Burn Become is collaboration, how you connect with people. And when you find those connections and you find, a common ground, you could do a lot when you have people and you work as a team. And for me, this has opened up the whole world. So, moving along, I ended up becoming a business partner with Wayne Strobel, and so now I'm part of the system here at Beachbox, and it's amazing to me because I never thought it was going to turn into something like this. And here I am doing a podcast, and I'm just absolutely excited about it. And this all goes back to the day where I decided to step up to the plate, stepping up to the plate and reinventing myself. And that's really what I'm doing. It's all about reinvention. And a lot of people who know me, I have a tattoo on my arm. It's a phoenix. I got that a while ago. It's very meaningful to me because it's based upon a very significant conversation that I had with my father. And, he passed away. And one day I was thinking about the conversation I had with him, and it just inspired me to go get this tattoo. And it's all about the fact that it doesn't make the conversation we had was, I'll paraphrase it, keep it brief. It was just like, we make mistakes all the time. But every time you wake up you get a chance to start new again. And that's the symbol of the Phoenix in a nutshell right there, starting new. You could start new now, tomorrow, whenever you're ready to. But the opportunity is there for you always. And there's no such thing as 3 strikes you're out in life. You could strike out as much as you want. There's no umpire that's going to kick you out. It's your life. And I decided I was going to start reinventing myself, get in front of a camera, and become a personal trainer. I'm still continuing as a firefighter till, I can't wield an axe anymore. But up until that point, I'm doing both, and I'm loving it all the way. So I have 27 years in the fitness industry, and this podcast is actually like a culmination of 30 years of me living under a guiding principle that I always want to progress. I always want to move forward, not waste a moment, dream big, and execute. And I'm always trying to reach my highest potential. With that, the one caveat is that if you're always striving to reach your highest potential, you have to be careful that you don't get stuck chasing that concept forever. I mean, you need to step back too and enjoy what you have around you and be in the present moment. Chasing your potential and what you think is your potential can also be dangerous. So that's sort of been that's been the way my life has been for as long as I can remember, where I'm always sort of riding that edge of, like they say, you're not quite pushing yourself until you're almost ready to just tear yourself apart. In fact, pushing yourself to a degree where you're maybe not tearing yourself apart, but you're slowly disintegrating. You're sort of giving yourself into the process, sort of like a phoenix. The phoenix is burning apart and it eventually turns to ashes. And that's finding that happy medium where you're not overdoing it is tough sometimes. You need things to ground you in your life. For me, it's my family, and it's my job as a fireman, and it's my commitment to others. When I have alliances, friends, and collaborations with people, I feel committed, and it reminds me that I have my job to do. And, this is stuff that keeps me focused on the now. And it's a little bit of a dance. So when you're stepping up to the plate, you're putting yourself out there. You're opening yourself up to basically the world. Everybody's going to see you. You're stepping up to the plate. Just think of it. You're there, and all around you is the audience, and they're watching you, and they're all watching every little move you do. And if you're up there and you're worried about failure, if you're worried about mistakes and maybe not looking right, not sounding right, not doing it right, then you're going to be miserable. And on top of that, you probably are going to screw up because you're focused more on not screwing up. So, stepping up to the plate is kind of, you got to have the courage, right? You got to somewhere find a little bit of confidence, although the courage is more important than the confidence. Just say to yourself, you know what, if I go out there and I don't do it, I make a mistake or I fail, so be it. You know what? Yes, people are going to judge me, ridicule me, talk behind my back. What does it matter? What are they doing? Are they stepping up to the plate? Probably not, because if they were, they wouldn't be one to talk, right? So I'm encouraging people to do the things that they really want to do in their life and to look at what it is that's holding them back. Is it fear? Most of the time it is. Fear is nothing really when you think about it. It's just a crazy reaction that we have, like fear of speaking in public. I had fear of speaking in public big time, and I realized I had to do something about it because in the fire service, sometimes somebody will ask you a question and you're in front of a whole bunch of new guys, and if you don't have the ability to speak in front of a group of people, you're not really doing well, right? We always have these opportunities to speak, and sometimes we don't because we're afraid of getting up and being judged, saying the wrong thing or whatever. So for me, I said I want to do this podcast for that reason, because I want to get comfortable speaking and having a focused train of thought. I also wanted to do this podcast because I like having good conversations with people, and it seems like nowadays I can't do that because everybody's on their cell phone. So it's a little sneaky way to get somebody in front of me and sitting in front of me with no phones and nothing to distract us. And it's been going great. And as far as stepping up to the plate, that's my one analogy I could give to you. Everybody has things in their life that they could focus on. And like I said, don't be holding yourself back because you think somebody else is going to think less of you or judge you, because they're the ones that are missing out on what's really going on. They're not doing it, and you are. So a little bit more about me and how I got into the fitness industry and everything to begin with. Years ago, I was like 18, 19 years old. I was skinny and I was weak and I smoked cigarettes and I didn't really eat, and I hurt my back lifting something that I really shouldn't have hurt my back lifting. It's like a table, and I just lifted it weird, and I actually had a sciatic injury, and it was the pain was traveling down my leg, and it was the beginning of July, and here I am, 19 years old, and I'm literally limping down the street, and I can't do anything, and my back is killing me like an old man. And I went to a chiropractor, and this chiropractor fixed me up pretty good. And then the best thing about this chiropractor is he gave me the proverbial slap across the face. He was like 30 years old or something, 35 years old. And he says, what are you doing with your life? You're skinny. You stink like cigarettes. You're like an old man. Fix yourself. You shouldn't have a back injury like this. And I was like shocked. I said, I can't believe this guy's talking to me like this. And then I said, well, what should I do? And he said, you should go to the gym and eat food and put on weight. And I said, okay. And he pointed me in the right direction, and I went with it. And everything took off. You know, I stopped smoking cigarettes, and I put on like 15 pounds of weight. And this girl that never paid attention to me, all of a sudden one day I was cutting the lawn with my shirt off, because now I felt confident to take my shirt off, and she walked by and she starts talking to me, and I end up going out with the girl for a little while, and then my confidence really goes through the roof. And after a while, I just started to really become so grateful for having fitness in my life, eating and the nutrition and everything. And that was a time where I stepped up to the plate, because I could have easily said, no, I'm not going to go to the gym. That guy's crazy or whatever, because really going into the gym for me was a test of my will. Like I said, I was very skinny and pale, and, no self-confidence really to go into a place like a gym. And this was back in the early 90s. And there was all kinds of jacked up dudes walking around and chicks walking around with like tight clothes and everything, which, I mean, that's a pretty good motivator for a young man, but it sort of scared the living shit out of me, because I'm sitting there looking at all these people. I'm like, I can't be like these people. I can't talk to girls like that. Nowadays I realize maybe I didn't want to talk to girls like that, but when I was young, all right, well, that's just the way it is when you're young. But I started getting into it anyway. I stepped up to the plate, and I got better with weight training. And as my weight went up, I started to get more into it, buy supplements, protein shakes and things. And but this is before the internet, so magazines and books. I would go to Barnes and Noble and buy all the Arnold Schwarzenegger books and Joe Weider books, and I was also into mountain biking at the time too, so I was even buying books about that. I was a voracious reader, and I focused all my reading attention on that kind of stuff. And years later, the internet comes along, and that was just, forget about it. That just opened up the doors of unfathomable amounts of information. And back in those days, the internet was, slow, and, there really wasn't all that much stuff compared to nowadays. But I mean, I was able to read for hours on the internet, and I just kept learning and learning and learning and meeting people and starting to weight train with different people, going on mountain bike rides with all kinds of different people. So I wound up, basically learning how to socialize better through fitness and through mountain biking, which are the same thing for me. And, a lot of trial and error in the nutrition department, listening to a lot of bad advice. And even with the weightlifting, I had people telling me, just do single reps, load the bar as much as you can, just do single reps, and your body has to adjust. And like that didn't get me anywhere. And it took me a long time to figure out what worked for me. And that's the one thing I've learned as the years went by is what works for me is not what works for you, and it's not what works for him or her. And as a trainer, I definitely try to remember that all the time when I'm talking with people and help them along, because it's a struggle sometimes. I remember it being that way, and nowadays I don't struggle with those parts of it. Like, I have the confidence, but what I struggle with is making time for it. And I understand that too now. So stepping up to the plate with your fitness can be a very trying effort. And it can be so trying that most people, they tend to give up after a week or two. A diet doesn't last more than a week or two. Or, maybe they join a sport or something, and they feel tired and they decide they're not going to go because they feel too tired. But the next day they feel tired, and the next day, and they don't realize that it's more like a lethargy that is in the mind rather than in the body. And they just got to show up and step up to the plate. Put yourself out there. Be uncomfortable. Be as uncomfortable as you possibly can, and just stick through it. And no matter what people say, no matter how they try to put you down or whatever, who cares? Because eventually it's all going to change for you. It's going to get better. Nowadays I'm doing weights, kickboxing, road biking, mountain biking, diet. I'm doing nutrition plans for people. I make my own nutrition plans. I think I just do nutrition plans for myself just because I like designing nutrition plans. And then I just try them out for a couple of weeks, and then I move on to the next thing. So that started to tie in as my life went along. And in my mid-20s, I started trying to become a fireman. And, for me, a firefighter is an athlete, tactical athlete. That's what I consider the position. We're expected to perform a physical task on demand in front of an audience, and there's a lot at stake. The taxpayers expect us to perform, just like you expect your Yankees to perform. If your shortstop isn't performing, what do? You boo him out of the stadium. So that's my mindset, and I always felt like with my fitness background, as I entered into firefighting at the age of 30, by the time I actually was hired, that was my cornerstone. This is where I'm going to build everything off of. My fitness segues into my firefighting, and I'm going to take it all together now. And now I have a real reason to train, because I want to be the best firefighter. I want to come home to my family. I want to be able to help people. I don't want to be a detriment to people, and I certainly don't want to have a health issue while I'm working at a fire. So it's very important for me to take care of myself, and every time I go to work and I go to my shift, it's a moment where I'm stepping up to the plate, because you have to bring your A game. Everybody has to bring their A game. It's pivotal, and that's on a cyclical basis. For the past 15 years, it's like I always know game time is coming up, and when my shift comes up, I got to lock and load, and I got to be ready to get into it. So I did become a firefighter because I wanted to help people, and I consider it part of the game, but it's obviously life. I'm not trying to simplify it. It's a game you could lose, but we don't want to lose lives, right? And recently I started getting more into life coaching, and that's only because people have come up to me for advice, like younger people. That's how I'm getting older, when people are coming up to you asking you for advice. When I was young, I always went to the old people and I would ask them, how to navigate through life, and that's starting to happen with me now. People are coming up to me and talking to me about stuff, and I love giving them anything I can, experience or whatever. Perspective is another thing, and that's a big thing with stepping up to the plate. What your perspective is. If your perspective on something is negative, are you going to be able to step up to the plate at all? Probably not. But even if you do, and you still contain that negative perspective, when you go out there to do what it is that you're stepping up to the plate for, are you going to be successful? Well, with a negative perspective, with a negative mindset, probably not, because you're almost creating the problem from your mind. Where the mind goes, the body follows. When you have a positive mindset and you step up and say, look, I don't care if I make a mistake. I'm going to learn from my mistake. And then the next time I step up, I'll remember that mistake and I won't do it again. That's the right mindset. So if you play it from that angle, you're always going to be a winner no matter what happens. And when I'm at the in the fire department, it's the same thing. We make mistakes all the time because it's sort of like organized chaos. Every fire looks similar, but there's always differences really behind in the background. The type of house, where the person's trapped, where the fire is located, the type of weather conditions that are going on. Is it an arson fire? Is it a mistake fire? Is it a cooking fire? So many different things can happen where once you get into it, it's really no two fires are quite alike. And who are you working with today? Are you working with your regular crew? Are you working with a detail crew? How are you congealing? What's the weather doing to you? So all these things play a role and create a situation of organized chaos. And in that organized chaos, we make mistakes as we fight these fires. And we have to adapt on the fly. You can't sit there and be like, I didn't stretch enough line, and now I can't reach the seat of the fire, and the fire's going, and just give up and say, I guess this one's a loser. No, you have to adapt to that mistake and fix it right away. And you have to do it like clockwork, and everybody has to work together as a team. So if you have a negative attitude, well, you're dooming the mission right from the start. So, this is stuff that I've learned over the years between being on the job as a fireman, being in the fitness industry, and just living life. I really believe that I've come to a point in my life as I also go through this reinvention and get out into the podcast world and everything. I believe that everything sort of has culminated into this perfect union now where it all makes sense to me. And it's just a test of time for me, really. I made all the mistakes and I went through all the trials and tribulations. And there's going to be plenty more coming along the way. And I'm more prepared for it now. I actually look forward to the moments where I screw up and I have to adapt. I look forward to the moments where I have to muster up the strength to step up to the plate and move forward and progress. Over the years, I made plenty of mistakes, and I'm still making them. But now when I make those mistakes, I just seem to handle them better. And that's really the message I'm trying to share with you here. So, besides our imaginations, which are our main focus, our imaginations are what helps us to be able to move forward and progress, because we can imagine ourselves in a better place. At the same time, on the other side of the coin, you can use your imagination and literally imagine the worst possible case of something and scare the living shit out of yourself and then not do anything because you are imagining something not working out. So how you use your imagination and how you adjust your perspective is where it's all about. Take your imagination and use it the correct way, shape your perspective, and approach something as if you are going to win it, no matter what, even if the mistakes come. And I just want to finish off. This is I'm running out of time here, and I don't want to go on and on with all this stuff, but I just want to finish off. I really need to say that my parents both contributed to my guiding principles. My father said, and I quote, "When you are in position to help, always help, never pass by." He said that because one day he got out of the car to fix a flat tire for somebody, and I was little. So I knew we were late for something, and when he got back in the car, he was all kind of flustered because it was hard to take the tire off and everything. So I was like, "Well, why'd you help?" Well, that was his answer. When you're in a position to help, always help and never pass by. And then another conversation I had with my mother, which was actually this conversation. This is something she said several times throughout my life when I was young. "What should I do, Mom? Should I do this? Or if I do this, this is going to happen and it's not going to work out or whatever." And she would always say, "In life, there is no gain without risk." So, those two quotes, smush them together in one delicious sandwich. Those are my guiding principles. You gotta take some risk in life if you want to gain. And the other quote from my father, always help. So how do they mesh together for me? Well, obviously what I'm talking about, stepping up to the plate, risk, take a risk, just take a risk. And helping people, well, for me, that panned out for me because I ended up becoming a fireman and now I'm in the fitness industry too. So in closing, stepping up to the plate is just another way of saying be courageous, be bold, and take a chance. Yes, you may be nervous or even afraid. And no, you may not even have the slightest bit of confidence in what you're going to do. I know a lot of times people say, "Oh, build your confidence up." Yes, that's definitely, get your confidence up. But there's times where you're not confident about something at all. So what are you going to do? You're not going to do it. You're not going to take the risk. That's where courageousness comes in. Courageousness says, "Hey, I'm not confident. I have no clue if this is going to work. I don't know what I'm about to do." But you take that chance anyway. And that's showing real courage. If you're not confident, you just don't pay attention. And just the act of stepping up alone will change your mindset totally. And you will be amazed at the empowerment you feel from it. That's it. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you listening and look forward to hearing any responses to this particular podcast. I'd like to hear your thoughts. If you could send us a message, and I'll try to read them out maybe on another podcast or something. That would be great. For now, take care and tune in next time. Bye.